if you're going to bring your work in for firing, whether it's in this week or a later week, a couple things I want you to do to help you make it easier for me to make sure the work gets back to you. So first of all, you've got a box. You got a box that your stuff came in, and so my recommendation is use that. Unless your work is a lot larger. But what I'd like you to do is make sure you get your name on that box really clearly so that I can keep your stuff in there. So your work should have a maker's mark on it. So I should be able to identify your work by looking at the maker's mark that's on it. Do not put your maker's mark in like pencil or pen or marker or something, because that will burn off during the firing. If you if you've got your piece and you forgot to put your maker's mark on it, get a needle tool or a pin and scratch it in. But remember, anything you write on the surface, unless you have underglaze, which is a particular type of material, will not show up. So you need to scratch it in. You need to make sure initials or mark show up. I'm still gonna try to keep your stuff separate when I load the kiln. And so that's part of the reason I want your name on the box. I also want to be able to, if you have packing material that you want back, I'm going to just keep it in the box, and nobody else is in the studio. So I'll keep it in the box, and then I'll be able to get it back to you. So when you go to load your stuff, you want to be aware of the fragility of the work you have. So I have some, bowls that are fairly stable, not fragile. I have some cups that have handles, which are a little bit more fragile. And then of course I have a teapot or a piece with the lid that's even more fragile. So a couple things to keep in mind. For the stuff that is pretty stable, you can wrap it in, plastic bags like that, just a grocery bag like this. I'd recommend putting the wider part, so now mine is upside down, the rim is here and the foot is here. I'd recommend putting it down like that. You can also lay down like a towel first, and I'll get the towel back to you. So that's why I want your name on the box. I'm gonna keep the towels with your stuff so you get your towel back if you use a towel or a piece of fabric or a sweater or whatever it is you end up wrapping your stuff in. So I'm gonna put this down rim first into the box. With stuff that's got something like the spout here, one of the things you might consider doing is taking a bag and kind of twisting it into a loop like this, and then you can wrap it around. I'm not sure I'd recommend putting it through the handles, but you can put it under something like this. You can also do a similar thing with towels where you kind of wrap around, and I've got to get the camera up here now where you can see. So you can get it kind of wrapped around so you have a little carved out space where you can put your stuff, and then you can fit the work inside of there. And I'm trying not to do it with the camera because I can't, I've got it switched so I can't see. There we go. So wrap your work up so it has some support around it. And then you can also put some padding on the sides. So other kinds of things that you could use as padding, towels, sweatshirts, depending on the size of your work, a blanket or like a baby blanket or something like that. I use bubble wrap and things like that. So if you've got bubble wrap, that'll work great. Any kind of soft packaging. You could, I suppose, depending on the shape, you could make like kind of a ring out of clay. But remember, this is going to sit and dry, so you're probably going to lose or have to recycle that clay eventually. I also have stuff in the studio. This is just like an old curtain or pillowcase or something. So, pieces of fabric like that can be useful for wrapping it up. I suppose, I'm trying to think just in case you don't have stuff handy that you can just send to school for a week. The other thing you could, I suppose things like leaves and stuff could be used as packing. Plastic bags, and then of course if you're not using the dry cleaner sheet, you could use that dry cleaner sheet to wrap stuff up in. You're gonna put your name on it, and what's gonna happen is I am going to unload box by box, one at a time, and what I'm gonna try to do is put everybody's work on the same level in the shelf. The one exception is if you've got test tiles. So I've put glaze on these little bowls and I'm going to use them as test tiles. If you are making some test tiles, I'm going to have to load those in a separate kiln. They're going to be fired separately. So it's really important that those get your name on them. If you're using a maker's mark, so let's say your maker's mark is I sometimes use this one. It's a backwards R and a D. Let me make that bigger so you can see it on the screen. If you're using that, or if you're using, you know, your maker's mark is 3 little hearts or something, would you draw it on the box for me so that I can connect, if I forget whose work is whose, or if I get which box goes where, that I can figure out who it goes to. So your box is going to be how I get your stuff. Your box is going to be what I give your stuff back in. Any packing material will stay in there. And then the box itself will be how I know whose is whose.